Well, thank you for joining us here on KREM News at 11 tonight. We are still waiting for Donald Trump to take to the stage at any moment. We will bring you his speech just as soon as he does begin speaking.
Good evening and thank you for joining us on this election night. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
It's good to have you here. I'm Whitney Ward. The polls closed just a few hours ago and we are tracking hundreds of key local elections across Washington and Idaho at this hour.
We are continuing to bring you team coverage tonight. KREM 2's Amanda Broly is tracking the race for Washington's 5th congressional district.
In the meantime, Shannon Mowdy is in Idaho tonight covering the race for Kootenai County Sheriff. We are taking a live look also at the White House, where all eyes are on the race for the next president of the United States.
Here's a look at the latest numbers, with many swing states just too close to call at this hour. Right now, former President Donald Trump has 246 of the electoral votes, while Vice President Kamala Harris has 210.
So right now, both campaigns are watching the polls closely. CBS's Bradley Blackburn and Natalie Brand have more tonight.
I'm Bradley Blackburn at the Palm Beach County Convention Center, where supporters of former President Trump are watching these early results closely, cheering calls in several states and hoping for a win. Former President Trump picked up the first key battleground victories. CBS News projects he has won North Carolina and Georgia. Earlier, Trump and former First Lady Melania Trump cast their ballots in Palm Beach.
I would say this was the best campaign we ran.
But he later cast doubt on the integrity of the election, writing on social media a lot of talk about massive cheating in Philadelphia without providing any evidence.
If I lose an election, if it's a fair election, I'd be the first one to acknowledge it.
CBS News exit polls show more than half of Trump voters aren't confident that elections are being conducted fairly, while their top issue is the economy.
I think when you look at the end of the day, fiscally, you look at our country, the budget was better, the taxes were better.
Trump's signature issue, immigration, was also a top concern for his voters. Trump is watching the results tonight with an inner circle, including billionaire Elon Musk. They're gathered just a few miles from here at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, West Palm Beach.
I'm Natalie Brand at Howard University, Vice President Kamala Harris's alma mater, where she's holding her election night watch party. She says the HBCU has shaped her into the person she is today. Supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris gathered at Howard University Tuesday night to watch the election results pour in. Earlier in the day, she stopped by DNC headquarters in Washington, D.C. to thank staffers and volunteers.
This truly represents the best of who we are.
She also made phone calls to try and boost turnout.
Have you voted already?
Early CBS News exit polls showed democracy was the top concern for Harris voters, followed by abortion.
I tend to agree with her policies and stances and the things that come out of her mouth.
The exit polls also showed men breaking for Trump while women backed Harris in margins similar to 2020. Mobilizing younger voters, college voters, has been a big strategy of the Harris campaign nationwide, and the campaign has expressed they're feeling confident with turnout of college voters in battlegrounds such as Pennsylvania. In Washington, I'm Natalie Brand reporting with Bradley Blackburn in Florida.
And also, just within the last half hour or so, the vice president's team told her supporters there in D.C. that Kamala Harris would not be speaking tonight and asked them to go home.
Taking things back to Washington State, here are the latest numbers in the race for governor between Bob Ferguson and Dave Reichert.
Yeah, the AP has now called this race for Bob Ferguson. He will take over the job that has been held by Jay Inslee for the last 12 years.
Our Seattle sister station is at both candidates' watch parties tonight, and Natalie Swaby and Drew Mickelson have more tonight.
Tonight in this room, Washington State Democrats were celebrating Bob Ferguson, and Ferguson thanked the thousands of supporters and volunteers who helped make victory possible. Now, Ferguson told the crowd his campaign won by building a massive grassroots coalition. He says they traveled across the state to 39 counties and heard people's concerns. And he says those conversations will guide him as governor. Ferguson said, "We will make progress on the most critical issues, from housing affordability to public safety, and from economic development to the ferry system." This has been such a big race in Washington, with voters electing the first new governor in 12 years. Ferguson, who has been the state attorney general since 2013, says he's ready for the job.
As your attorney general with a fantastic team, we fought for you every single day. We did not pull our punches. And as your governor, I will center you Each and every one of you, red counties, blue counties, Republicans, Democrats, independents, you are top of my mind. I'm thinking of you, will advocate for you, will make Washington even a greater state than it is today. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's go get them.
Ferguson thanked his opponent, Dave Reichert, for a hard-fought campaign. He also thanked his wife, Colleen, and kids, Jack and Katie. He says he will be making an announcement in coming weeks about building a team to lead Washington State into 2025 and beyond. In Seattle, Natalie Swaby, KREM 2 News.
The state Republican Party held a party here at the Bellevue Hyatt, and they had a lot to celebrate nationally, not as much here in the state of Washington, especially the governor's race. But Dave Reichert, the Republican hopeful, is still not giving up hope. He knows that he's behind in the numbers. He knows Bob Ferguson has declared victory. But Dave Reichert says there are hundreds of thousands of votes to still be counted, and he wants to honor all of those voters who filled out ballots. So he says he won't give up and concede until the last ballot is counted. Something he told his supporters here, he says, I know a lot of you want to move out of this state if Bob Ferguson is elected governor. Dave Reichert told people they need to stay and fight, win or lose. He says the Republicans need to stay in the state of Washington. For KREM 2 News, Drew Mickelson in Bellevue.
We are also tracking the race for Washington's 5th Congressional District. Eastern Washington Congresswoman Kathy McMorris-Rodgers is stepping down. Democrat Carmela Conroy and Republican Michael Baumgartner are seeking that seat.
Tonight, Baumgartner, you can see easily in the lead with 60% of the vote against Carmela Conroy with 40%. We heard him claim victory earlier this evening, and we did watch as Carmela Conroy conceded the race.
Both candidates are running to be the representative in Congress for the 5th District. That district covers much of eastern Washington, including the counties of Ferry, Stevens, Pend Oreille, Lincoln, Spokane, Whitman, Walla Walla, Columbia, Garfield, and Asotin, along with parts of Adams and Franklin's counties.
And turning now to KREM 2's Amanda Rowley, who spent the evening with Baumgartner and his campaign team at this hour. So, Amanda, what was the overall sentiment there tonight?
Well, Mark and Whitney, this room was full of some pretty pleased Republicans here at the historic Davenport. Michael Baumgartner took the stage and thanked Eastern Washington. Tonight, he is very pleased with the initial results, showing a pretty strong lead ahead of his opponent. Take a look at this crowd from earlier this evening. The second the preliminary results dropped, everyone began to cheer, celebrating the strong lead Baumgartner has at this point. Now, Congresswoman Kathy McMorris-Rodgers introduced him to the stage. She says she is honored and excited to quite literally pass the baton. She handed over a baton once he got on stage with his family. The 5th Congressional District race has not been called yet, but Baumgartner says he plans to work hard every day to be an outstanding member of Congress for all of Eastern Washington. He also thanked McMorris-Rodgers for her 20 years of service in Congress.
Every time I walk through the mall in downtown Spokane and I see that big red shoe, I think of that as the size of the shoes I have to fill, the Kathy McMorris-Rodgers red high pump there.
Well, we'll be watching closely to make sure he keeps his word. In Congress, he must work across the aisle and put Eastern Washington ahead of party, and we must hold him accountable if he does not.
That was Democratic candidate Carmela Conroy giving what sounded like a concession speech. Again, this race has not yet been called, but we are watching it closely. Conroy also said in her speech tonight she does plan to run in this race again once it's up for grabs. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
All right, Amanda, thank you very much. Continuing to look at some of the other top races in the area. In Washington's 4th Congressional District, 2 Republicans are vying for the seat. Incumbent Dan Newhouse facing Jared Sessler. Newhouse has been under attack by former President Trump after the congressman voted to impeach Trump following January 6. As you can see right now, Newhouse in the lead, slightly though, with 51% to Sessler's 49%.
And as we look at the race for the U.S. Senate, the AP has called this race for incumbent Maria Cantwell right now as she has a strong 60% lead. And earlier, this is what she had to say at her watch party tonight.
Thank you all so much. It is a great honor to represent the state of Washington in the United States Senate. And it is a great honor to take the values of people in this state to get things done, to work across the aisle, to protect a woman's right to choose, to protect our environment, to grow economic opportunity, to lower costs.
Cantwell was first elected to the Senate back in 2000. And taking a live look right now, this is the Kootenai County election cameras as workers there continue to count the votes tonight. The polls have been closed for several hours in North Idaho. However, we are just starting to see some of our first results.
We are tracking several key local elections across the Gem State at this hour. Voters are deciding on two statewide issues. Prop 1 would eliminate party-based primaries in favor of a top 4 open primary system. As you can see right there, Prop 1 right now getting 69% voting no against that one, 31% in favor.
And Idaho voters also deciding on a constitutional amendment which would block anyone who is not a citizen of the United States from voting in any election in the state of Idaho. You can see that constitutional amendment easily looking to be passing tonight with 65% of the vote.
Meantime, in Kootenai County, voters had to choose between 4 candidates for sheriff. Incumbent Bob Norris is running against Justin Nagel, Kyle Woodward, and Dan Wilson. Right now, Norris with a sizable lead with 69% of the vote tonight.
Staying in Kootenai County, the first round of results just dropped here within the last hour, which is well after that anticipated time that we had expected them. So we are turning now to Shannon Mowdy with what took so long to get those returns. Shannon?
Well, I spoke with Kootenai County Auditor Jennifer Locke here at the elections office, and she tells me it is just the sheer amount of ballots, both early and day of ballots, that have made this kind of a challenging task for counters. Now, early ballots, that's in-person and absentee ballots, doubled over the last presidential election 4 years ago. And I was also told by Locke they had 50,000 ballots cast day of. The ballot is also 2 pages here in Kootenai County, so Locke says that's as if they're counting 100,000 votes just from Election Day. The numbers in right now are from absentee ballots at this point. Now, one race we are watching closely here is for sheriff. Dan Wilson at this point is trailing with just over 20% of the vote. Incumbent Bob Norris leads currently over his 3 challengers. He says it just shows voters approve of his work over the last 4 years.
I think that, crime is down 16%. We are taking fentanyl out of our streets and out of our schools with record number of seizures. And we've engaged this community like no other sheriff. We have a great record on the water. So we're looking forward to repeating the same and doing a lot more in the next 4 years.
Now, I spoke with Norris by phone as he is watching those results from home tonight. And we also did speak with Dan Wilson at his event. He says that if he is not elected, he will not run again, and he will go back to the business that he has put on hold for the last year to campaign, and says he will, quote, smoke cigars and drink whiskey. In Kootenai County tonight, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
All right, Shannon, thank you very much. All right, we are still waiting for Donald Trump to take the stage tonight. As soon as he does take the stage, back on KREM 2 News on CBS tonight. Our local election coverage continues on KREM 2 News at 11. We'll take a quick break and be back with more.